Hello, how are you, mate? Hi, how are you? Are you
The
familiar
French
with
diet.
croissant diet? Yeah, I've heard about it.
Mm.
Yeah, it seems crazy to me. Is it true that large quantities of stearic acid trick your cells into thinking you're fasting and so you're oxidizing a lot of fat? It's not actually the tricking. It's not a trick of the cells. It actually has to do with the mitochondria. When you've got high levels of stearic acid, what happens is you get a thing called reverse electron transport in the electron chain, and so what happens is the you get this reverse effect that pushes from, without talking about the biochemistry, from the FAD, which is complex two, pushing it all the way back. So you're not actually pushing because you use coenzyme or Q10 to move those electrons across to the other your other complexes into your 3 and 4 to provide to energize those pumps which are pushing through protons into the inner mitochondrial membrane to create a proton gradients to push against that gradients and actually go through the ATPase, which produces energy. But what happens is when you have a lot of stearic acid and palmitic acid, but palmitic acid is slightly less. Oleic acid, which is a MUFA, has the bare minimum reverse electron transport effect, and it actually pushes through complex one, and you get this ROS signaling by a bit of reactive oxygen species coming out of complex one, and that signals to the cell to provide, furnish what materials it needs for the mitochondria to get biogenesis. So it goes into the cytosol of the cell and encourages either mitochondria to fuse or to basically, like, ones that have issues fuse together and create a more viable mitochondria, or basically biogenesis, split, create additional mitochondria to produce more energy. Or be that will provide more energy. So that's what's really happening. And so once you do that, obviously more mitochondria, you can actually oxidize more energy. That technically means you'll be able to oxidize more of your body fat over time. Also, by being on a croissant diet, you're you're in your low Randall cycle state because you're primarily low fat, but with a lot of stearic acid coming in as well from the butter. And remember, butter is one of those things that has a lot of medium chain triglycerides, short chain fatty acids, doesn't have much MUFA, doesn't have much PUFA. And so you end up with a lot of these things that can be converted into ketones, and the remainder, that part of that, because it does have a high stearic acid, it will actually go through the reverse electron transport. So you end up, the gradient, the potential gradient of Randall cycle activation is lowered quite a bit. And so you end up with a diet very much akin to a low fat type diet, or a low carb diet, similar, where you don't have Randall cycle activation state, and you lose weight. But long term, obviously, it's deficient as buggery, like the vegan diet, because the vegan
Hmm.
diet also disengages the Randall cycle, but also has these negative effects. So, can you do it as a short term thing? Yeah, you can do anything as a short term thing. Fat loss. Losing fat is very easy. I mean, bodybuilders cut all the time. It's not a difficult thing to lose fat. So there's a difference between losing fat and health span and health and being healthy.
Definitely.
You know,
Yeah.
I-
Yeah. The French. The French people that eat lots of croissants and things. Were at a conference yesterday. They're saying I think they had around 10% of their diet made up of ultra processed food, and then when you go to the UK or in England, where I am, 51%.
exactly.
So that's kind of a confounding variable there if you're looking at population studies, of course. So
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and even Spain was about 14%.
yeah.
So
And a lot of the French people still there's a sizable part of the population still on the land in compared
Mm.
to many other industrialized countries. And a lot of them, and also they've got a big industrial sector. They don't have a big finance sector, and they don't have a big, you could say, population that works like in offices. They still have a substantial amount of people working in industry, factories, on the land. So that also plays a role. And we know that because even the British studies back in the 1930s showed that the office workers had higher health issues compared to the industrial workers. Again, one is able to deplete glycogen and in doing so reduce the gradient of the Randall cycle and have
Yes.
less poor outcomes. No different than some of these bodybuilders that get away with it in the early days where they eat, you know, things like lean meats and rice, but eventually it catches up to them in later life and they look
Is that
like
just because
shit by that stage.
the pancreas almost gives up in a way? The
Well, it's
deuterium
overhuge.
builds up.
Deuterium is the big one
Yeah.
because you're actually every single day you're damaging your mitochondria and reducing your redox potential.
Mm.
So you're reducing the amount of ATP you can produce. And as you move forward, you've got less and less energy, and that reducing energy over time will basically lead to higher senescence because you can't heal, don't have enough energy to heal, and the higher senescence will increase cytokines. You'll have high senescence with your immune system because a lot of people that are doing these things, they've also got poor immune systems. And the immune systems, what are cytokines coming from senescent cells? It's a signal saying, I'm effed, I need to be taken out. Apoptosis, please. But if your immune system is weak, it's not going to cause apoptosis. And potentially some of those then could revert to cancer as well, yeah, under certain circumstances. So pretty much the diet, a high deuterium diet in the end will stuff you up
Mm.
one way or another. And basically a croissant diet is introducing quite a bit of deuterium in the form of that glucose, in the form of that wheat product that's in there. So there's nothing there, short term, yeah, probably get away with it. Long term, there's a cost to everything you do.
Yeah. I completely agree.